A teenage boy hides inside his own house while his infected mother is trapped in the bathroom, still trying to break out. Outside, his baby sister starts crying, and that tiny sound is enough to attract every sick person nearby. Now he has only seconds to silence the baby, before his own mother and the monsters outside find them both. To understand how this nightmare started, we have to go back to Peacock Island. The story begins on Peacock Island, a small Canadian island near Montreal, where people usually come and go by boat or through frozen routes when winter takes over. Right now, winter has swallowed the place. Snow is falling everywhere, the ground is buried under ice, and the island looks quiet enough to hide something terrible. In the middle of this frozen island, workers from a large biotech company arrive wearing protective suits. They are spraying a special fertilizer across the land, but not for farming or science. A rich man has paid them because he wants to play golf during winter. Since snow covers the course, this biochemical product is supposed to keep the grass clean, green, and playable, no matter how cold it gets. Honestly, what greater service to humanity could there be? A rich guy needs winter golf, so clearly science had no choice. Peacock Island has a small community, and one important person there is Dan. Dan is an older man who lost his wife, and now his only close family is his daughter, Patricia. She works for the same biotech company, while Dan works security on the island. Dan never fully trusts modern life. He believes people have become too dependent on technology, and one day everything could collapse. So while others live normally, Dan prepares, like tomorrow society will fall apart and humans will be back to fighting over rocks and fire. He also listens to a radio show hosted by Patrick, who attacks rich people, corporations, and the government. So Dan is already suspicious before the world gives him a reason. One ordinary day, Dan is driving around town when a teenage boy passes in front of him on a bike while using his phone. Dan warns him not to use the phone while riding, but the boy barely cares. That boy is Andre, and he also becomes important later. Dan calls Patricia, like he does almost every day. He loves his daughter, but maybe a little too much. Lunch, coffee, random check-ins. Patricia is tired of it. She knows her father worries, but she wants him to understand that she can take care of herself. This time, Dan asks her to meet him for lunch, but Patricia says she has work. Meanwhile, Andre is at home with his mother and little sister, Annie. Their father is not around, and because Andre's mother has to work, a nanny comes during the day to watch Annie. The problem is when his mother gets late, the nanny cannot stay forever, and when the nanny leaves, Annie becomes Andre's responsibility. He does not want that responsibility because taking care of a little kid is not his idea of fun. But that night, his mother is late again. The nanny leaves, and Andre is stuck with Annie. On the other side of town, Dan finishes his shift and goes to a parking lot where his Jeep is parked. Every day he adds supplies to it, mostly survival items. Food, tools, emergency gear. The kind of stuff only a man waiting for the end of the world would collect. After placing another item inside, he goes home. Patricia is still not back, so Dan goes into the basement and tries to light a fire the old-fashioned way. For a man preparing for civilization to collapse, he is not very good at it. He keeps struggling, and when he gets frustrated, he pulls gunpowder out of a bullet and uses it to start the fire. It works, but not in a heroic survival expert way. The small blast burns off one of his eyebrows, making him look less like a doomsday genius and more like a man who lost a fight with his own hobby. Late at night, Patricia comes home and finds Dan asleep on the sofa. When she sees his face, she notices the missing eyebrow and starts laughing. Dan may be ready for the apocalypse, but apparently he is not ready for basic fire making. The next day, Andre has a bigger problem. The nanny is not coming, so he has to watch Annie for the entire day. Very quickly, he realizes babysitting is not easy. Annie almost pulls a television down on herself, and Andre barely stops it. He is irritated, stressed, and clearly not built for parenting yet. That same morning, Dan gives Patricia a ride to the biotech company. On the way, she secretly takes a picture of his face because the burnt eyebrow is still too funny to ignore. Dan is annoyed, but this is one of the few normal moments left before everything starts falling apart. At the same time, the rich man behind the golf project arrives on the island with his wife, Maud. His name is Louis, and he is welcomed by Michael, one of the men working with the biotech company. These are the same people whose workers were spraying the fertilizer at the beginning. Louis and Maud inspect the golf course, and Louis is delighted. Everywhere else is covered in snow, but the course is clean and green. Exactly what he paid for. So he starts playing golf, proud of the miracle product that lets rich people pretend winter does not exist. But the film shows us the real danger beneath the surface. The chemical has not stayed where it was supposed to. It has seeped into the ground, spreading like an infection. Worse, it has reached the island's water system. That means everyone drinking, cooking with, or washing in that water is now in danger. Back at Andre's house, things are still chaotic with Annie, but the real first victim is someone else. A local actor goes to the market to buy vegetables. Before arriving, he had already drunk water from the town's filtration system, the same water now contaminated by the biotech chemical. While shopping, he starts feeling strange. His wife calls and tells him to come home quickly, so he leaves the market and returns home. His wife is waiting for him in the bathtub, unaware that something inside him is already changing. Suddenly, the man notices his teeth turning green. He tries to clean them, but then his eyes begin turning green too. At that point, he is no longer in control. The infection takes over, and he becomes something like a zombie. His wife keeps calling out to him, and because these infected people react strongly to sound, he moves toward her voice. Then, without understanding what he is doing, he attacks his own wife and bites into her throat. She struggles for a while, but soon she is infected too. A few moments later, both sit together in the bathtub like a nightmare. After finishing their golf game, Louis, Maud, and Michael return to the restaurant. Strangely, no one is there to welcome them. Then the workers suddenly come running from outside, screaming that everyone needs to run because people are sick. Before Louis, Maud, or Michael can understand what is happening, their dog has already become infected. It attacks Maud, and then more infected people start rushing toward them. The situation turns violent within seconds. Michael and Louis run into the restaurant and lock the doors while the infected crowd tries to break in. But Maud's infected dog gets inside too and bites Louis. Since the virus spreads fast, Louis starts changing almost immediately. Michael realizes staying there means death, so he grabs a knife and runs for his life. What happens to him, we will find out later. Now the scene shifts back to Dan. He receives a call from an old woman complaining about her neighbors. According to her, they usually play loud music, but today the sounds coming from their house are different. They are strange, disturbing, and not normal at all. Dan goes there to check, but before he can do anything, the old woman also turns into one of the infected. She moves toward him, ready to attack, and Dan barely reacts in time. He rushes back to his car, locks himself inside, and suddenly his crazy survival mindset does not look so crazy anymore. The infected people around the house notice Dan too, and within seconds they rush toward his car. They hit the windows, pull at the doors, and try to force their way in, but luckily they cannot open it. Dan tries contacting the other security people, but no one answers, so he calls Patricia. Her phone goes straight to voicemail, which tells him something is badly wrong. He leaves a message saying the situation on the island does not feel normal anymore. He is going to get his Jeep, then he will come for her too. Meanwhile, Andre is at home with his mother and little sister, Annie. His mother warns him not to give Annie tap water. Andre himself never really drinks it either, because he mostly lives on cold drinks. For a moment, everything feels normal. Then suddenly, his mother starts changing. Her face goes blank, her body becomes aggressive, and she moves to attack her own son. Andre grabs Annie and runs for his life. He gets outside just as Dan drives by, and Andre's infected mother slams into Dan's car. The impact injures her badly, but she still tries to reach Andre. He almost goes back to help her, but Dan stops him. Infected people are coming, so Dan has no choice but to leave. Andre drags his mother back inside and locks the doors. By now, Peacock Island has been completely sealed off. Outside, people know some disease has spread, and nobody is allowed in or out. To stay alive, Dan is forced to kill several infected people. Andre locks his mother in the bathroom. One infected person tries getting inside, but the entrance is too narrow, so it gets stuck. Andre notices something important. When he makes noise, the infected reacts. But when everything is quiet, it almost stops moving. That is useful, but Annie is a baby. She cannot understand survival rules. She starts crying, and the sound attracts danger. Andre quickly puts her in the cradle and covers it with a pillow to muffle her cries so the infected outside cannot hear. It is a desperate idea, but it works. The infected loses interest and moves away. The night passes. The next morning, Andre looks through the window and sees the infected standing outside, staring at the sun like empty shells. They are not running anymore, just standing there, fixed in one place. Andre tries to bring his mother out of the bathroom, but during the struggle, a television falls and crushes her head. His mother is dead, but Andre barely reacts. Maybe the shock is too much, or maybe deep down he already knew she was gone before this. After that, he decides to leave, but as soon as he steps outside, the infected begin chasing him. He runs through town with Annie and reaches the supermarket. Dan is already inside, and he quickly opens the door. Dan recognizes Andre as the same careless kid from earlier, but there is no time for lectures. Inside the market, Andre learns the truth about Patricia. Dan did find his daughter, but he could not save her. She had already turned, so Dan locked her inside a freezer. It is brutal, because Dan spent the whole time trying to protect her. At the restaurant, Michael contacts someone. It becomes clear he was connected to the virus, or knew more than everyone else. The person on the other side tells him that protocol is arriving. Michael now only cares about getting off the island before the cleanup begins. Back at the supermarket, Dan thinks they should stay there. The place has food, supplies, and enough space to hide. He tries to start a fire the old survival way, using wood, while Andre pours gasoline on it. Dan explains that fuel will not last forever, so they need to survive without depending on easy shortcuts. Even now, while zombies are outside, this man still has time for a survival lecture. They turn on the radio, and the same show Dan always listens to is broadcasting. Outside the island, people now know Peacock Island is dangerous. Dan calls the host, Patrick, begging for help. He says they are not sick and need to be rescued, but Patrick refuses. He tells Dan there is no way to know whether he is infected or not. If anything reaches the mainland, the disaster could spread everywhere. Dan cuts the call. Andre says they cannot just hide in the market. They need to understand what the disease is and where it came from, because maybe someone can create a vaccine. Dan thinks about it and realizes the infection must be spreading through the water. Everyone got sick around the same time, and water is the one thing the whole island shares. Andre believes him, because he never drinks town water, and Annie is too young to have had much of it. That explains why they are normal. But leaving the island is almost impossible. The government has destroyed the boats. The water is freezing, and the only road out is blocked. If the authorities decide it cannot be contained, they may destroy the island. The next day, 2 twin women arrive. They work for a secret company, and they already know exactly what is happening. On their way in, they kill several infected without hesitation, then reach the restaurant where Michael is hiding. Michael has the vaccine formula, but instead of helping him, the twins force him to consume the same fertilizer that caused the infection. Michael turns, and the twins take the vaccine. Now, their real job becomes clear. They are not here to rescue people. They are here to erase evidence. The people of Peacock Island were basically part of an experiment. At the golf course, one vaccine capsule breaks, and for a moment, the place starts returning to normal. The next day, Dan leaves the supermarket with Andre and Annie. He also brings Patricia with them, but because she is infected and could bite them, he has trapped her inside a net like an animal. Their first stop is the water filtration plant. Dan wants to shut down the water supply so more people do not get infected, but Patricia escapes and jumps into a pool. Dan goes after her, and during this moment, he and Andre discover something useful. The infected do not attack each other. That means they can use an infected person as cover, almost like camouflage, because another infected is inside the pool and does not attack Patricia. Dan tries pulling Patricia out, but her infected body has changed so badly that one of her arms tears off. Even after that, Dan still gets her out, refusing to abandon his daughter completely. They get back into the vehicle and Dan takes them to the restaurant. During the chaos, Andre loses Annie and goes searching for her. Dan still has Patricia's severed hand with him, and by now the infected are changing inside, almost turning into gas. Strange algae-like growth is spreading through the area. While exploring the building, Dan discovers bombs planted inside. The twins are planning to destroy the place and wipe out every trace, because this building contains a high amount of the virus. Dan gets exposed and becomes infected too, but before fully changing, he deactivates the bomb. When the twins realize the explosion did not happen, they return to the building. They find little Annie sitting on the floor and force the virus into her. When Andre arrives, he grabs his sister, but the twins move toward him too. Just as they get close, Annie has already become infected, and she bites one twin's finger. This gives Andre a chance to escape. After that, the twins lose control and end up shooting each other. Dan is now infected as well, but he does not attack Andre because Andre is holding infected Annie. Andre breaks one of the vaccine capsules, and both Annie and Dan breathe it in. Then, Andre locks Dan inside a room. The military finally arrives, and Andre thinks they might help, but he quickly realizes they are killing every living thing on the island, so he runs toward the shore. By then, Annie has recovered because of the vaccine. Dan is burned with the infected. At the shore, Andre sees people arriving by boat to rescue him. He feels relieved and leaves the island with them, but Patricia's severed hand is still with him, and before leaving, he throws it into the water. That mistake ruins everything. A fish eats the hand and becomes infected, showing the virus has not been stopped. And to make things worse, a TV interview later shows a minister drinking coffee from a cup with the same company's logo on it. So the ending makes it clear. The company was not just cleaning up the accident. They are preparing to release this virus on a much larger scale. The island was only the test run, and the real outbreak may be just beginning.